help cover the costs of these venues and to bring excellent programming and speakers to you all. So I'm going to pass this around. Give what you can, and if that is nothing, that's totally okay too. Last note is that this is an opportunity to gain knowledge and learn, but not to source or sell medicine. Thank you, Teresa.
Welcome spring. Great day to celebrate spring, to talk about plants. San Pedro is a really remarkable cactus. Can you hear me now? So it's a great way to enter spring with this cactus, because this is a cactus of transformation, just as spring and air is a great time of transformation. My name is Teresa Ulrich, and I discovered San Pedro in around 1996. I was living in California, and it was after doing peyote with some friends. I became very curious about this medicine and started researching it and came across San Pedro. So I ended up at a cacti nursery. Being a young girl in a cactus nursery, I'm sure the guy who cultivates questioned what I was purchasing. But yeah, I purchased 2 beautiful San Pedro plants and brought them home. And just for the novelty of having the plant is magical. Just having it in your home is magical. It wasn't until 2002, when I was going through a hard time, that I consumed it. I've read books about it, but people only got us to a certain level of energetically to the goal they reached. So all the reports are that it was really weak, or I had just a few visions, but I wasn't there. And the reason why is because you have to eat a lot of cactus to get to the level of a full journey, essentially, so a foot-long piece. So I was jobless. It was after 9/11. I was researching medicinal plants, looking, because I'm just drawn to plants. And one day a friend and I ordered some cuttings that I thought I would continue planting. And I just had a really bad day, and I decided, F it, I'm going to eat this thing. And I cut it up. I ate like 1.5 foot of a 4-inch cactus, because I was like, if it doesn't happen, then it's false. I ended up tripping for 15 hours. But what came out of it was like such a lightness, such a loss of worries, and I felt renewed that I could start seeking, I made space that, I need to start a new career, I need to find a new skill, where am I going to go, in what direction, and this plant opened up space for me. So Aldous Huxley, there's a really good, interesting discussion in The Hummingbird. This is a good book, The Hummingbird's Journey to God. So when the English novelist Aldous Huxley was given mescaline by the English physician Dr. Humphrey Osmond in 1953, he said that it allowed man access to mystical states by overriding the brain's reducing valve. Huxley was a proponent of the ideas of the French philosopher Henri Bergson, who had, in the previous century, supposed that the brain acted as a filter of memory and sensory experience, so that our conscious awareness wasn't overwhelmed with a mass of largely useless information irrelevant to the survival of the organism. So they're stating that there may be a filter in us, or else it would be overwhelming. So then Bergson suggested that if these filters were bypassed, man would be capable of remembering everything he had ever experienced and of perceiving everything that is happening everywhere in the universe, which would equal clairvoyance. So Huxley then applied this theory to mescaline and other similar substances, which he and Osmond called psychedelic, meaning mind manifesting, and suggested that they override the reducing valve of the brain, bypassing the filters that stop us from potentially perceiving everything. There's a quote by William Blake: "If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite." After he reported this study in 1953, peyote was put on Schedule 1 and made illegal. So today's presentation, we will go over legality. Quick tips on the cactus. We'll go over history, how to grow, how to prep and extract mescaline, how to microdose. We'll talk a little bit about medications and how it affects and conflicts with other medications. Ceremony and journeying will be the finale. And then we'll listen to the song of the Wachuma cacti while I take questions. So legality. Federal and state laws outlaw the possession of mescaline and peyote. This means that they are on a Schedule I Controlled Substance Act, meaning that just about any act involving them can lead to prison time. The only exception are indigenous people of the Native American Church. It used to be that Native Americans had to be signed up with the Native American Church in order to take in the mescaline plants. But in 1994, they expanded it to reach out to all Native blood people, so they don't have to be part of the Native American Church. So non-Native religious peyote users have approached the government asking if they can also have an exemption, but they've been denied. But there are 4 states that allow it. So state laws allow in Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Oregon, allow the religious practice and use of these plants, San Pedro and peyote. The only exception is that you have to be in a very safe place. They expect you to be very responsible, not to have anybody in your environment that you can harm. And even though these states, they may be legal, there's a case that a cactus nursery owner was raided by the police in a legal state, and all his cacti were destroyed. They found him because he was advertising on drug sites. So it's very important to be very careful and responsible, because we don't want to cause any more laws to prevent us from even growing it. So there are over 20 species of cacti that have mescaline and about 79 individual plants. And okay, so you can grow it, you can own it, that's legal. It's just when you extract it that it becomes illegal. So anyone who harvests their cacti for ingestion is moving from one side of the legal line to the other. And so if you're prepping capsules, teas, dried powder, don't prep too much in advance, just in case. So always be discreet and keep it small. Now, San Pedro grows at a very high altitude, up to 9,000 feet. So it's native to the Andes Mountains, 9,000 feet, so it's really susceptible. I mean, it's not susceptible to cold and frost. It can handle it. It's found also in Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Ecuador, and Peru, and also cultivated in my greenhouse down the street. The species, so it displays a light dark green stem. It achieves like a diameter of 2.5 inches. In my greenhouse, these ones are pretty small, about 2.5 inches, up to 6 inches when they're in a sunny environment and dry. The areoles are the bumps where the spines come out. And it grows up to 20 feet, but the tallest on record is 40 feet tall. It grows fast. It's a really fast-growing plant. And it's most popular for its psychoactive properties. The alkaloids in the plant most well known are mescaline. And the alkaloids that are in here are the 3,4,5 trimethoxyphenethylamines. It's a psychedelic alkaloid that belongs to the phenethylamine class. So the effects are compared to psilocybin and LSD. What's interesting is that these psychedelic properties of mescaline are related to its structural similarities with the neurotransmitters dopamine and serotonin in the brain. So the molecule works in a similar way to other psychedelic compounds by activating that serotonin 5-HT2A receptor. Now, it's not always been called San Pedro. The indigenous names were Chuma, Achuma, Wachuma, and Hoachuma. It carries a very masculine energy, but it's a soft masculine energy. That's why it's called grandfather medicine. Sitting with this cactus is like sitting with a grandfather who has infinite love and compassion and could see all your traits that are beautiful and wonderful, and wants to show you a direction and how to use them. So we call it grandfather medicine. In comparison, ayahuasca is grandmother medicine, grandmother moon. So I would say grandmother medicine is like tough love, and she teaches you to face your fears, and it's really good to work with grandmother. She'll make you eat your broccoli if you don't like it, and just push through it. And then several retreats do ayahuasca ceremonies, followed by San Pedro as part of the end of the ceremony to integrate everything you've learned with ayahuasca. This is a glyph. It's a very popular glyph. And there's a piece of art somebody replicated it in. This is a lot of animal symbolism here. We have serpents for fertility and water and vitality. The condor on his head is a feminine energy and teaches us to fly above our trials and tribulations, to soar above and get a bigger picture of things. Then the puma coat. This is of a shadow animal. It's a medicine that teaches you to walk into your fears, to face the unknown, and to do it with grace. This is a replica of what used to be a temple in Peru called in the Chavin Valley, Chavin de Huantar. So it lasted roughly from 1200 BC to 500 BC, and this is around the same time as the Olmecs. These were our ancestors that came before the Aztecs and the Incas. They lived in the high Andes and in the foothills, and they tended to fish out in the seas. They sourced shells and a lot of sea life for their food versus a major river valley. So as you can see, there's super high coastal mountains, and those are the Andes. Another model and replica. So there's a temple here, a sunken plaza. They have an old temple and a new temple. People from villages from miles and miles would come to the Chavin temple and trade and sell and sit in religious rituals. It was spawned by San Pedro, or Huachuma. So they say it may have been actually inspired the complex civilization to develop in the first place. How San Pedro was discovered and for its effects, I don't know, and I haven't found anyone who knows yet. I just assumed that somebody was hungry, and then they were thirsty, and they ate a lot of cactus, and then there was an awakening. So Huachuma may have been actually inspired. It actually may have inspired this complex civilization to develop in the first place. How do we bring people together? At the heart of the entire society's religious and political organization was an elaborate Huachuma ritual, which was performed at the main temple. And there's only one of these heads. This is a puma head, the jaguar medicine, that they used to have tons of animal jaguar heads along the walls. And the maze. They built tunnels under the ground and throughout the temples, and would take their visitors in the dark through a maze while they're on the Huachuma. And they would blow putupus shells, I believe they're called. They blow these shells, and then there was water, rivers of water running through these walls. So you'd have this incredible sensory experience. But they wanted you to kind of like face your fears. Participants under the influence spent hours wandering this dark maze. And what's interesting about San Pedro, if you go on a full journey, there's a lot of light. Archaeologists have not noticed any signs of smoke in these mazes. So it's kind of assumed that people were high and they had their night vision on to walk these mazes. Until they rounded a corner and saw the sun shining through one hole in the roof and onto a 15-foot high monolith called the Lanzon. These mazes were the inspiration for Indiana Jones' Temple of Doom. So simultaneously pointing up and down in the classic as above, so below. So this is a 15-foot monolith, and it must have been stunning after being in the dark for so long. And it represents the merging of heaven and earth. And seeing it was the culmination of the psychedelic Huachuma initiating rite, it served to instill in people a fearlessness of death, as they realized they were immortal souls in immortal bodies, which is the essence of San Pedro. This is the Lanzon, and it's like a serpent-covered god that they sculptured out. But they were hoping to open up a common inhabitant to a sacred worldview that served to hold together their society. So this was a community they built together. And the priests that ran the temple, there was no hierarchy. They would take San Pedro and they knew what their duties were. There was no war. They knew what they had to contribute to keep the community held together. So after the Spanish conquest, indigenous people were still taking San Pedro. And the missionaries and the priests weren't too happy. But the indigenous people wanted to keep taking it. So they're like, well, but when we take this, we meet St. Peter, who opens the gates of heaven. He holds the keys to heaven. And the missionaries are like, what? What are you talking about? So even the missionaries tried it, and they're like, oh, they're right. This is like heaven on earth. This is St. Peter. And that's how the name San Pedro came about. Oh, yeah, and they grudgingly accepted. So the missionaries started studying the medicine, too, and they said that, the juice is good against burning of the kidneys, and in small amounts is also good against high fever, hepatitis, and burning in the bladder. I'm going to go over 3 major cacti varieties within the Trichocereus group. Trichocereus pachanoi is the most popular, and those are the darker green ones here. And it's the most common, the most available, and it grows fast, up to 1 foot a year if it's in a sunny, dry environment. In my greenhouse, it grows about 4 to 5 inches a year when I keep 10 hours of light on it. It has 6 to 8 ribs, but some have had even up to 10. The mescaline content is around 0.3 to 1.2%. But for easier memory, remembrance, if you have powder, just assume that there's 1% mescaline within the powder by weight, because if you start to weigh cactus, it depends on when you water it, how heavy or how light it'll be. So for a full journey, a 4-inch diameter at 12 inches long provides enough mescaline. But make sure it's healthy and green. I've had some that are a bit yellow or lime green and don't get the same effect. Trichocereus peruvianus is the blue torch. These are the fatter ones, and they got the blue hue on top. And these are cool. They're a little more rare, and they have a little more mescaline. They've also been known to, the rumor is that it's good to do more shadow work with these when you're willing to face more of your fears. And I haven't tried these yet, but maybe next year. So mescaline concentrations can vary even with specimens of the same species. Factors which can affect their mescaline content include the temperature and water availability. Studies have reported dried Peruvian torch cactus contains approximately 2.4% mescaline. So it's about 2 or 2.5 times more than the Trichocereus pachanoi. And then there's Trichocereus bridgesii. This one is really rare also. And this one, I'm still new to. It's the rarest I can get access to, and I thought I bought some here. And I went looking online at photos, and they don't look quite like that, but they do tend to have long spikes. They're the tallest, actually. They grow up to 52 feet in height in their natural environment, 2.5 inch long spines. They hold mescaline in between the amount of the Trichocereus pachanoi and the blue torch. Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask, who here has ever tried San Pedro before? Do you raise your hands? All right. So how to grow. It's great. This is a legal plant to grow, and it's easy. I just buy cactus soil from Portland Nursery and make sure it's aerated. There is a cactus soil out there that is quite dense, but you want to make sure there's a nice amount of perlite in there. So 1 part pea gravel, 1 part perlite, 1 part peat moss. And the key is not too much nitrogen. Sun. So I have several cacti in the summer they've burned. If they get direct sun, they do this. They soften, and then they create a scab over their edge. And the best thing to prevent this is a screen, just like gives some shade to it, but as well as you get like half sunlight coming Cuttings. Cuttings are the easiest way to cultivate and propagate the cacti. Make a cut at an aerial, so find a spine. Maybe if you can find a couple of those that you cut along and cut it at an angle so the water runs off of it, because if it's flat and you water it, that top surface will start to mold. They have very shallow roots. They grow a bit widespread, but very shallow, so you want to be able to plant your cactus about at least 2 inches down into the potting soil. When you cut your cactus, lay it out, dip it in some rooting powder right away, and let it dry out for 3 days to a week, and then put it in soil. So what we're trying to do is allow the end to dry, to cauterize, while that rooting hormone powder goes in there and encourages root growth once you plant it in the soil. So yeah, 3 days to 1 week, let it callus up. I've had some, I had 2 weeks, and they started to get really squishy. So definitely squish. If they're getting squishy too soon, make sure you plant them a little bit earlier. Again, 2 inches deep in a pot, and the pot doesn't have to be that big. You can see these pots up here, they're not huge, and I get some really amazing growth out of them. Also, you don't want to have a big pot where you overwater it, and the cactus keeps drinking the water, and it can get some rot and overwatering. Grafting is fun. This is San Pedro with peyote grafted on top of it. So a lot of people, there's tons of this out there. San Pedro is supposed to be a really good mother plant for grafting, that you can graft several different varieties of cactus on here. I've done it once. I've been able to graft it once successfully, just making a cut, putting it right on the center in the core, and using toothpicks to hold it together. Pupping is the natural way to grow new San Pedro branches. Like right now, my greenhouse, my cacti are dormant. They're not growing very much. I almost wanted to buy some new cuttings for this presentation, but because it's still the end of winter, early spring, I'm worried that it won't root very well when I plant it. It'll just get wet and moist because I have not had much success in the winter. So I'm saving it up for spring and summer plantings. I do poke for pupping. I do poke holes in the aerials. And I'm hoping this spring I'll see some new growth. And I had it happen, and it was really helpful last year because I wasn't getting any pupping, new growth. So I found out it'll just get a little, end of a thermometer, or just poke some holes in there. And so yeah, I'll wait and see. Hopefully I'll have several more little baby pups, but they're really exciting when you see a little baby. The flower is amazing. So it's a huge flower. It's really unexpected to see such a beautiful flower in this plant. When I was doing a full journey once, before I even knew what the flower looked like, I saw visions of this giant flower with these long petals and these big stems coming out. And then later that week, I saw the flower for the first time online. And I was, wow, that's cool. It's just a gorgeous flower. I'm like, of course. Why? Of course. So the flowers, they put out white flowers, and they bloom at night. So the flowers are about 7.5 inches in length and 4 inches in diameter. They come out at night once fertilized, and they produce fruits, which are about 2 inches long. It's a self-sterile species, which means it needs another pollen donor like bees or, hand pollination. So they bloom near summertime, and apparently they smell really good. Someday I'll be able to get out there to smell a live one, but together they're supposed to have a really beautiful aromatic quality. And these are the fruits. If you're ever lucky to get a cactus that fruits, this is how it looks. And once it pops, if you're collecting seeds for growing new cacti, do it immediately, because at this point the seeds can be affected by a fungus or other diseases that are introduced by pests. So find a reputable source for seedlings that are, the seeds must be hand-pollinated seeds. Again, like I just repeated, pests can introduce fungus, can introduce disease, and you might buy seeds and like maybe only a few will sprout. So there are a lot of seed providers that do all their pollination by hand, and you can have a successful sprouting. And this, just needs a lot of humidity. Some people sprout in sandwich bags. And it's only, the biggest issue is fungicide. So you got to have a fungicide for the first 4 months because they're so susceptible to the fungus. If you're concerned about ingesting the cactus with the fungus, just wait a month, don't apply the fungus, and the plant will absorb it and release it. For seed soil, 1/3 fine washed silica sand, and that's similar to beach sand, 1/3 screened peat, and 1/3 perlite. Mix that together in small pots, 3.5 by 4 inches. Leave about 1/2 inch of space at the top, and then the soil will be a natural food provider, so you don't need to add more food at this point. So the soil will provide food for the first 4 to 5 months. Then the seeds can be sown year-round. So you want to add a little bit of sand on the top of the seedlings, just a light dosing of the sand. Then set it in a bowl of really shallow room temperature water. The important part is keeping it warm, really warm, 90 degrees by day and 60 degrees at night. And it needs lots of light, 16 to 18 hours. Then maintain the humidity at 60 to 90%. So that's why you can use a terrarium. Perforated sandwich bags are popular for small growth. Misting is needed. And after 3 to 10 days, they will germinate. And it says to grow this for about 6 months. You know, you want those roots to develop and to become hardy. Then you can adjust the environment by making it brighter and hotter and drier. Watering can be tricky. It's not too labor intensive, which is nice. So I choose, I do have some plastic pots here, but I prefer the terracotta pots or a clay pot. Because you want to water it, you want it to dry up fairly quickly and not sit in the water for too long. So it shouldn't be allowed to rest in water. The pot should not be allowed to rest in water for too long. I water mine once a month. In the summer months, if there's a huge heat wave, I water twice a month. You know you're overwatering when they start to puff up the spines. You don't see as many spines. They kind of swell and they get a bit squishy, and then you know, okay, I got to pull back on this watering. So feed your San Pedro cactus an all-purpose cactus fertilizer monthly. I do that. I like cactus juice from Portland Nursery. And always make sure the soil is completely dry before you water again. Again, temperature. They grow at 9,000 feet. They're really frost hardy. They deal with cold weather very well. Ideally, it is ideal to keep it warm above 50 degrees. Next, we'll go into preparing and extracting. I've tried several methods because I'm curious. I just get curious and I have to try different methods that I hear about. But first we'll talk about dosage. Now, we'll get to microdosing after this. If you want to go on a full journey, this is a good chart to get you on how many milligrams you would want. So a low dose is 100 to 200 milligrams, which is a mild buzz. It's a good trip. Moderate dose, 200 and 300 milligrams of mescaline. High dose, 300 to 500 milligrams, and that's intense visuals and ego disassociation. An extreme dose, 500 to 800 milligrams of mescaline. It says only for experienced people. Do you want to go there? So work your way up. Here we go. The Trichoceres pachanoi, the 300 milligram dose of mescaline is contained in 100 grams of the dry material. So 300 milligrams of mescaline is contained in 100 grams of dry Trichoceres pachanoi. The blue torch, the Peruvianus, 300 milligrams of mescaline is contained in 37.5 grams of dry material. That's 300 milligrams of mescaline is contained in 37.5 grams of the dry blue torch. And the Burgesi, I'm like, that's still vague. It's somewhere in between the above. And as a comparison, the peyote contains 300 milligrams of mescaline in 27 grams of dry material. Now, some people say the ribs have an effect on your journey. The number of ribs can affect the experience. I normally do 6 pointed stars, and this is for balancing the masculine and feminine energy within. It's good medicine to find equilibrium, which I find to be true, and it says, I am a divine expression of unity, I am whole. which I agree with. I've always had that experience. The seven-pointed star is supposed to be a little better. I've only had one cactus, seven-pointed. It's a good all-around medicine. It connects people's hearts on a deep level and brings joy into their lives. This is wonderful for healing emotional wounds. The eight-pointed star is more balanced than other cacti. It's a mellow journey connecting the mind with the physical body. The most contemplative of the stars. It's unstoppable, strong, and single-minded, like a plow through the mind. So it's kind of like, its message is like, it's going to repeat it and make sure you understand what the download is and what it's trying to tell you, that you get it, and you're grounded with it. Nine-pointed star. 9 is the number of initiation. The vibration is high and allows the body to release toxins for days following. It raises your vibration to the highest possible level and may help put you on a new track where life rapidly unfolds in a lighter way that serves your highest good. And the 10-pointed star is supposed to be very subtle also, so shamans like to combine it with other stars to get a maximum benefit, like 1/3 of 10-pointed to 2/3 of 9, to bridge the physical and celestial body as a good platform to connect with the Creator. So drying. I think this is the most common, drying and making a tea. Drying is easy. You cut out the core of the cactus. You include the white part, just not the very center. Cut it up, put it in a food dryer or an oven on low heat, and make sure it's fully and completely dried. You can even cut it in slices. Then when it's dried, pull off the outside from the center, and then pulverize it in a food processor. Tea is similar. You start the same way. Just disregard the core, cut everything up. I then blend it in a food processor and put it into a big stock pot and slowly simmer it and reduce it. I blend it again in a food processor, and I run it through a cheesecloth, and you catch the last of the fibers. And I've done some research online, and they say these fibers, just throw them away, which I didn't. I dry it, and there are still alkaloids in the fibers, so every little bit is usable. Skinning is another popular one. That's where you just source the greenest part of the cactus that contains the strongest alkaloids, and people eat it raw or they also dry it. This is what I do when I'm doing a full journey, is turning it into a cactus smoothie. And it's very bitter. I don't suggest it for anyone who can't handle bitterness. It's hard to get down, and it's very mucusy. It's like a mucus smoothie. But like the dark green ones aren't so bad. They're from the Chavin Valley. They're not. I've had some that are really snotty and gross. But first, you harvest the plant, and I recommend saying a blessing to the cactus. This is a very sacred medicine. Connect with the cactus before you cut it. Get its permission and explain to it what you would like to do, and that you're not going to kill it. You want to take a cutting. You never kill the cactus. You just take a cutting so that lower base can pup, or you take a cutting on top and replant that. And once you explain that to the plant, they're more receptive and willing to offer themselves. So once I cut the cactus, I then cut the spines out and cut it into some thin slices, cut the core out. The reason we cut the core out is I didn't cut the core out, and there was this huge root cleansing. So if you want a lot of fiber in that experience, go for it. But, so ever since I stopped eating the core, I've been fine. So then I process it in the food processor, and it gets really foamy because, again, it's mucus. It's trapping a lot of air. And then blend it with some water. Once you blend it, I recommend letting it sit out for a little bit because the bubbles will come to the surface. If you drink it right away, you're just drinking air. It'll settle, and then you can drink it. And I recommend taking it with some acidic fruit like grapes, pineapple. It helps cleanse the palate. So what I like to do for a full journey is 20 grams of dried San Pedro, and that helps develop a body high as that. And then when I want to get more spiritual, I want more visions. I want more downloads, and I want an experience. I want to go deep into the universe. Then I eat the cactus raw. because there are alkaloids in there that through drying and through reducing into tea that are lost. Next is microdosing, and there isn't much information out there for microdosing. So I decided to try it myself. How do I do this? So first, let's talk about medications. If you're on antidepressants, it reduces the effect of San Pedro by about a third. And I used to be on antidepressants, and I've journeyed while on antidepressants, and I had to take about an extra third. I got off antidepressants through using, through ayahuasca and San Pedro, and it was a time in my life that I got over a really hard place, and now I want to do these medicine journeys, but if you're on antidepressants, SSRIs, or MAOI inhibitors, you can get very sick. In San Pedro, you'll go into a serotonin syndrome. So you don't have that risk with San Pedro, which is really nice. It is recommended that if you are planning a full journey to maybe cut back slightly 2 weeks before. But check with your doctor because sometimes that can be dangerous. The difference on antidepressants, it was a bit more numbing. I didn't get as many nuances than before. And now when I journey, I do. It's more heart opening. It's a deeper feeling. Antihistamines are fine. Blood pressure meds, there's an alkaloid called tyramine that increases heart rate to be careful with. But at the same time, there's information saying it calms the nervous system. So I've noticed high heartbeat. Be careful if you have a high blood pressure day and you're aware of it, not to partake into too much San Pedro. I do not recommend San Pedro with anybody with mental illness, but to be with a professional who can work with you one-on-one. Moderate depression is wonderful because, I get these bouts of depression once in a while, and these are these repressed feelings, and taking these journeys helps my emotions to come up, and it feels so good. It's like being reborn. Like, oh, that was there. What was I, and you get so much information about why were you repressing these emotions, backstories on it, and given the okay to express it and to cry and to be angry. It's important. Asperger's, people with Asperger's find they like it because it creates a sense of unity. People with Asperger's tend to isolate themselves or feel like nobody likes them. And when they have this experience with San Pedro, they are connected with, the collective whole. So again, SSRIs, be careful. Ayahuasca, definitely do not go there if you're on antidepressants. How do you figure out what to microdose, how much? When I first started to microdose, one day I was a weekend, I took 3 grams, way too much. I was gardening, but I was just staring at the roses, and I'm like, this is not. So then I took it down to 1 gram, and still it was a little bit much. So now I take 0.50 grams in the morning every other day. At first I did it every day because I wanted to understand what that feeling was. How is it affecting my nervous system and such. Occasionally I've done the 0.25 grams in the morning and the afternoon. But I have a strong system that people are sensitive to start with 0.25 grams and then through the weekend start to increase it slightly to see until they can feel the effects. And what you'll notice is a tingling sensation in the fingers, lightheartedness, humor. I get more energy, but some people say they get tired. So it depends on your system. Awareness of the environment, sensitivity to others' energy. And it's not like you're absorbing other people's energy. There's a roundabout awareness of where people are in perspective and empathy. This is my favorite part. Ceremonial journeying. Who has journeyed with San Pedro here? Anybody? So I recommend, if you don't know how sensitive you are, to start with 15 to 30 grams of dried San Pedro, and then upping it by 10 grams every 45 minutes. It takes about 45 minutes before it comes on, and it's taken me up to 3 hours before. I like to start earlier in the morning, around 9, 10 a.m., because it takes several hours to get the feel of it. Is this the right place I'm supposed to be? Do I want to go further? So set a timer, because you might forget. It's like, oh, it's only been 15 minutes. You're eating more, and you're eating more, and you're eating more until it's too late. So definitely don't take too much too soon. And how to prep. Diet is really important before a journey. So like with ayahuasca, there's a dieta that through eating certain foods and taking sugars, salts, meats, fats out of your diet, any citrus, anything. It's a very bland diet. It allows a lot of your inner problems to come to the surface. So when you go into ceremony with the shaman can work with you. It's right there in front. It's easy to access. Because in life, we are stuffing it down with alcohol, sugary foods, whatever, other drugs. And that's all fun, but we got to work through that if we want to evolve and become a better version of ourselves. So ayahuasca is a really strict dieta. But San Pedro doesn't have quite the strict dieta. I have done a full dieta with San Pedro before, and I do have a cleaner experience. The nuances are more detailed. I get more communication. But it's only about 3 to 7 days before. Just don't eat processed foods. Avoid alcohol, drugs, and meat. I ate meat once the night before, and I had to take extra, and that wasn't good. Always set an intention, so about a week or so before. Ponder questions, what you'd like to work on with yourself. I choose 3. When I journey, the plant usually picks 2 to focus on, and usually one's like, you already worked on that, so let's just focus on this. It's a focus point on your journey to bring you back to why you were there. Otherwise, you're like, ooh, this is fun, and that's what it is, just colors, enjoyment, a good body feel, but we're there with the purpose to do the work and to get some wisdom back from this plant. So definitely set your intentions. Be clear about them throughout your journey. And you may forget, just go, oh yeah, let's think about that again, and then you'll get even more information throughout the whole journey. Definitely clear space before you start your journey, and you can just create a little ceremonial circle in your home. I call on the elements of water and fire and air and earth, my spirit guides, and a goddess. I call on Pachamama. She is like an Andean term of an ecosystem. She's our Mother Earth and everything that works and energetically intertwining. Pachamama blessings are wonderful. And what's interesting about this plant is it's really amazing with music. Audio is incredible. So have your music set up. You can just make sure you have it available so you're not fumbling around in the middle of a journey trying to find a song. It's the worst. You lose your focus. So definitely setting is important. I use candles. Just make sure you have candles protected. Set the house on fire. No matter what form you use of San Pedro, make a little offering. If you have dried powder, I put fruit around it. I like to offer tequila, actually, isn't the choice. And bond with your cactus. You're developing a relationship, and you're calling on this cactus to bring you wisdom. Offer that you will protect the cactus. You ask for protection for this energy, and offer that cactus protection also, that you are here to create a safe space, and just be grateful. And through that bond, there's an opening up of soft energy in a safe, protected circle. Now, down in Peru, there are many retreats. If you just go online, there are so many retreats. They all sound lovely. But make sure you find a good shaman. The ones who focus on San Pedro ceremonies are called huachumeros. And when you meet with their shaman, they will get to know you, and they'll talk about your intentions. They will sit and listen to you. But the shaman's duty is not really to be kind or be your friend. The best part of a good shaman is them calling you out on your shit. So you're there to get some tough love, and they're there to send a message from spirit on how you can evolve. So we always have to make sure, you always have to tell, like, what is my place in the situation? What is my place with this intention? Why? And instead of blaming others, how did I contribute to this? So the shamans will focus on you first. How did you let this happen? what is the pattern? How do we stop this pattern from happening again? And that comes from within. So, and coming from within, like I spoke to you about, what if we didn't have filters? What if we didn't have filters? A good shaman is not somebody you gave your power to. That's the wrong way. And I see in this culture recently, people go to others for healing, and they give away their own power. But, you know, without that filter, we have the infinite wisdom within, and it's so infinite. And when a good shaman will help you locate your own inner wisdom and the capacity it has to love, the hope, to have faith. So once you go to Peru and have a San Pedro experience, you need a shaman that's going to awaken your inner wisdom. And it never ends. It's like lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of learning and heart-opening wisdom that we all have. So when you go home, you don't have a shaman there. You got to keep working on that, your own inner self. It's there every day to access. So a good shaman will guide you and open you up to that expansive universe that is your inner infinite wisdom. They do clearings. Lots of beautiful clearings here. And the clearings are great for getting rid of nervous energy. When I get a clearing, it's either sage or Palo Santo wood. It calms the energy. It's really nice. You know, when you go to a first ceremony, I'm nervous, a little jumpy. Then it clears that energy field so we can all then sit down and bond in a circle. And we connect in an energetic way. Shamans, you work with a mesa. And a mesa is a traveling altar. And they can have tokens like just stones, crystals, bones, little pieces of wood. They create their own mesas by what is given as an offering for them, going for a walk in the forest. You know, bending over and finding a piece of bone, picking it up, and having a spirit say you're supposed to work with this. And then through time, they learn how to work with it. Here's another mesa. They also work with floral waters. When they do a water blessing, you might have seen shamans when they blow the water on people and they spit it out. That's a water blessing. They use some really amazing floral waters that some are for exorcisms, which I've witnessed some exorcisms and clearings of, you know, some really dark entities that attach to people. And it's an incredible experience to witness. And then the shaman will use these floral waters to clear the energy after this exorcism, and it changes the minds and the hearts. And then what's interesting also is that they bring their Catholic religion into their work. So here you see Jesus on a crucifix and saints and angels. They have extracted the essence out of what they were taught through the Spanish Inquisition. They recognized the stories for what they were, the beauty of Jesus, the prophet, the message of loving each other. So they carry that on in their work and combine their ancestry, magic, and shamanism with the new Catholic religion. And here they are, blessing despachos. Despachos are prayer bundles that you can create. You pick flowers, some people put money in it, and you wish over it, and you pray over it, then tie it up into a bundle. You know, they burn it and bury it into the earth. It's a beautiful offering. So I have to say it's some of the most powerful energy I've ever witnessed. And this book is wonderful, Masters of the Living Energy. This doesn't necessarily go into ayahuasca or San Pedro, but it goes into the mentality of these shamans in Peru and Andean spirituality. It's Masters of the Living Energy by author's last name is Wilcox, The Mystical World of the Quiero of Peru. And they have amazing capabilities of transmuting energy. So that's something new I'm working on, is surrendering, transmuting energy. Where I used to, if somebody unloaded on me, my cells would hurt, I'd absorb it, I'd carry this energy around for a long time, and now I can just kind of hold space for them, just be there in a non-judgmental way, breathe in that pain, and transmute it, breathe it out, breathe love out. And in Buddhist ways, it's also called like a Tonglen. And a good way to do it is like breathing it in from your belly, being willing to breathe in that negative energy. And it's not good or bad. It's just something that this person has heavy energy. But wait a minute, you're in place that you don't have heavy energy. You can take in that heavy energy, breathe it in, and just lighten the load on that person. And then just breathe it out. And imagine a light coming from the universe and the sky is connected to down below. And do that several times. And you can do it very gently. It doesn't have to be a big theatrical breath. And that's transmuting energy. That's taking in something that's heavy for somebody else. And if you hold on to it, it'll be heavy for you. But if you breathe it in, breathe that light in and out, like 3 times, and think of love, positivity, you'll notice that the person in front of you is unloaded, has lightened up. And this book, Masters of the Living Energy, goes into several more practices like that. So there are animal guides that are very associated with San Pedro, and the deer is one of them. Well, the deer, find my deer medicine. They have the ability to see through illusion. There we go. It's associated with gentleness, caring love, sensitivity, and graceful beauty. Because of their well-developed senses, it is said deer can see through illusions and guide through chaotic situations. And people with deer medicine can also learn to detect subtle movements, hear things unspoken, and to use their intuition to avoid dangers. This is medicine that will show up in a full journey. The deer will come. The deer also teaches us how to listen well, just to be aware. Another very sacred animal is the hummingbird. Yeah, and hummingbird. There's an old Andean story about a fire that breaks out in the forest. It's about to consume the whole forest, and all the animals get together trying to have a meeting. What do we do? How do we stop this fire? And there's one little hummingbird going to a creek, picking up a drop of water, going back to the fire, repeating that fire, and the animals are just like, what's he doing? What are you doing? And the hummingbird says, anything I can. And right now, in this day and age, we're forced to work very fast. How come we can achieve this quickly? Almost even like, how come I can't evolve as fast as I want to? Find joy in the little things. If you're feeling depressed, if you're in a really hard time, every little thing you do counts. Find some, peace with that, and that's okay. I also like hummingbird because it has such little wings, it's a little body, and it goes on such long journeys. And it represents how far we can go, our little hummingbird spirits inside. We can fly much further than we allow ourselves to. And more hummingbird helps us to connect more strongly and to create a space for our soul's essence to be expressed by releasing the emotional or physical blocks holding us back in the ancestral realms. And that's a key sentence for full journeying is the goal is to remove those blockages that we put in front of us. And some of that's for safety. Some of that's just habit. The more you work on changing those patterns, the more the ego will keep trying to pull you back into that habit. And there's a resistance there. And that's something you just got to keep working through. And it takes time. It doesn't happen the first time. But when you keep working through it, the easier it gets. I was in a peyote ceremony. We worked on our mother wounds. And somebody was like, how come it always comes back? We do these ceremonies, and the first week you're like, yeah, this is wonderful. A couple weeks later, a few bad habits are coming back, or bad thoughts. And in the peyote ceremony, somebody said, the more you work on it, the easier it gets. The more you work on it, each time you work on it, you have healed one of your ancestors in a full line of ancestors. So keep working on it. Puma energy is very, very powerful energy. The puma represents our shadow. It's used a lot in ayahuasca ceremonies as symbolism. And if you don't work with your shadow, it'll show up at the worst times. So I like to think of there's a white wolf and a dark wolf, and you must play with both. And there's a time and place to play with either. The jaguar medicine includes seeing the roads within chaos and understanding the patterns of chaos. Moving without fear in the darkness, moving in unknown places, shape-shifting, psychic vision, facilitating soul work, and empowering oneself, reclaiming power. So it's finding, it's walking into darkness, walking into the unknown, finding a center, finding a place of groundedness. So it's a very powerful medicine to work with. And a lot of shamans tend to, when people work with them in ceremony, they tend to start to shapeshift into jaguars. It's fascinating. So towards the end of your personal ceremony, definitely have food pre-prepped and have cozy food available, because as you come towards the end of your journey, you need some nourishment. And before eating your food, say prayer, offer a gift of thanks. And once you do so and take that first bite, it's the beginning of the entrance into sleepy time. So I like to do day journeys. So it's allowing that changeover to happen once you start eating the food. Definitely drink plenty of water, and fruit tastes amazing. Now, integration is a huge part. So some shamans say after the ceremony is ended, then the work really begins. Integration is huge. Make sure you either take a nice walk the next few days, journal, you can create some art, write some poetry, move some energy through your body through yoga. Do not drink. I did that once after 2 days, and I lost a lot of the download wisdom. I lost about half of what I learned. I just dropped into a lower energy vibration. So do not drink alcohol. Don't waste that time and all that information. Now, through ceremony, there are so many, there aren't even words to express what you'll be learning, because it's all within the heart, too. While you're doing it in ceremony, definitely, you'll start pondering things. You might get information, and you start trying to store it. You're like, I got to remember this. I got to remember this. Go into your heart. Feel into it. Go from here and connect it into here. That's where you'll have the memory of it, because you will forget it if you just keep it in your mind. And topics that that can help you evolve. Focus on: do you consider yourself a victim in anything? Are you holding on to shame, grief, and trauma? Humility, emotional repression, anger. Forgiveness is huge with this medicine. What I found is incredible amount of compassion to forgive what I would consider my enemies, and it wasn't. All I thought was like, well, they're just human too. What was my part in it? And letting it go. Forgiveness is about, like, I need to make space. I can't hold on to this grudge anymore. And letting it go and letting it be. When you go, all this information you get is not about, I'm learning a new skill on how to improve myself. It's more about surrendering and letting go. Letting go, letting go. And through that, then your own inner essence starts to shine and come through. It's your authentic self. And that's always there. Let's just remove the layers. Love, especially. Addiction, this is really wonderful for addiction and handling it. When are you getting out of control and sitting with that medicine? Fear of death. There's a certain essence of, like ayahuasca, there's already been a study that comparing it to people who had near-death experiences and versus ayahuasca experiences, and they're super similar. The only difference is that the people who actually had the near-death experience had a choice whether to go on and die or come back into their body. So San Pedro is somewhat similar to that. So you learn that your spirit's going to live on. This is just a vessel that's carrying us. What are we going to do with this time on Earth? Are we going to waste it, or do you want to, even though this work is hard, to work through the ego? Do you want to work and explore and be curious about it? What gifts do you have to offer? And that's what grandfather medicine will show you. These are your own gifts, and it's different for each and every person. So surrender, I've been focusing on a lot too. We go day in and day out with work and hold on to certain dramas that happen in our lives. But to wake up and surrender to each day and to forgive everyone from the day before too, and forgive yourself, is super important in having a balanced life and a happy life. And going on to locating shamans, there's plenty of internet information, but I recommend, hopefully, if you know somebody, you can get a testimonial. It's important not to show up in Peru and just pick any shaman because they do prey on Americans. But there are plenty of lovely lodging situations. Meeting, blogs are really good, reading about blogs and then contacting the writer of the blog to find out. Oh, yeah. YourMateTom.com was a really good blog, and he does some podcasts too, talking about psychedelics. I learn more about Wachuma learning from aubreymarcus.com, and he has some podcasts in his history that talks about his Wachuma travels to Peru. Down in Peru, they like to do Wachuma medicine walks with San Pedro, barefoot. So it's connecting with the earth. And I hear it's amazing, energetic, vibrationally. And my friend Patrick is here, who's been on one of these walks to Machu Picchu. He's going to share with us his experience.
About 5 years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to go down to Peru, and with a group of people I've been working with ayahuasca. And when we got to Peru, we were introduced to the shaman of Machu Picchu, which right away made me think, yeah, right, the shaman of Machu Picchu. He turned out to be the real deal. We went to Machu Picchu, and the mountain behind it is called Huayna Picchu. And he took us up into these little mountains here, and we drank Wachuma, and then started up to the top of this mountain, then down, all the way down the backside, down to the river. And of course, every half an hour, he's stopping us and going, here, drink some more. And at one point, somebody I'm very close to was sitting on a flat spot with and incredibly high on Wachuma, with about a 2,000-foot drop right behind her. And I'm just like, please, just like come closer. Right? But for me, Wachuma is, it's not a very visionary medicine. It's just, I get connected very deeply with the nature, everything. You can feel the life in plants and animals and things. And if you ever get a chance to do Wachuma, it is a wonderful, wonderful plant to work with.
Thank you. That's the end. Any questions?
What was that you mentioned doing what was different than ayahuasca?
Oh, the ayahuasca with Patrick?
I thought you said a different word.
Ask that again, please.
Wachuma.
Wachuma, it's the same thing as San Pedro. It's just the native
The
name
indigenous name of it.
Oh, okay.
Before, it became the name of St. Peter. So I brought this music machine. So in the 70s, there was a lie detector test that was connected to plants. And if you, the study was that if you put fire underneath the plant leaf, then the lie detector test will start spazzing out, like don't do that. So this machine's based on plant vibrations that turned it into music, which I will connect. Are there any more questions?
With your dosages for microdosing, were those milligrams just like the dry?
The dried grams.
So you said that you liked the date journeys, but traditionally, are people taking it at night in ceremony? Is it a night thing?
Some people do it at night. What would you say? Because I've heard a lot about day ceremonies in Peru.
Originally, they were done during the day, but they moved to night during the Spanish Inquisition, so they wouldn't be killed. But, there's a couple of people working with San Pedro that are doing mostly daytime things now.
No, I don't have a cow plant. She loves to sing. Anything else?
I noticed a lot of books around your plant there. Are there any that you might suggest that kind of summarize what you've taken us through?
Definitely. This is books on audio I listened to this week. Writes one about ayahuasca, and this goes into, shame, victimhood, really into detail about what he's learned, and it's a very vulnerable book, what he's expressing about his life, and I learned tons out of this book that I wish I could just put into words, but he's already got it. So this is San Pedro, Opening the Pathways of the Heart.
It's the author.
The author is Javier, what's his name? Regueiro, Regueiro.
Thank you.
Then another one is Cactus and Mystery. This is a good one. The author is Ross Heaven.
Many indigenous medicines have an experience of coming up into the day, whether purging or
Purging, yeah. You do get a little nauseous with San Pedro. Peyote, you get more nauseous. Some people do vomit and purge on San Pedro. I don't. I get more, there's shaking that happens, crying, purges, crying. But it's not as it's not similar to the ayahuasca kind of purge. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the name of this device that you're attempting to use?
It's called Music of the Plants. It was developed in Italy. She sings.
You got to move the root one, Teresa.
Thanks. You need the copper that goes into the soil. Another question? Yeah.
You mentioned that eating meat had affected your journey. I was just wondering if you think that was due to like the energy from the animal and the meat.
I don't know. I just felt like it was disrespectful to the plants for some reason. Patrick, what do you think?
Depending, the foods that normally affect dosage are foods that have a lot of oil or fat in them, and so you don't absorb the medicine as quickly as if you haven't had all that stuff blocking your gut.
They played with us when we started at the beginning.
maybe Mercury retrograde is kind of playing tricks right now.
Yeah. Guys, come on. Any other questions?
If you have a mature plant, can you grow it in an outdoor protected area year-round? Or do you put it in a greenhouse? Or
In Oregon, yeah, definitely don't put it outside because there's too much rain.
keep the rain?
California, yeah, San Diego, those areas, it just takes off.
If you have something to keep the rain off, it's temperature tolerant.
Temperature is tolerant, it's just the water.
I had one that slid into the eaves and it did lost the growth tips. It recovered, but it's hard.
In the summer, do you put it outside?
But you have to acclimatize the machine,
There it is.
so it doesn't move.
Oh, wait.
Do you have any experience, or is there any kind of a pulse that you know about fast?
Oh, fasting preparation?
Fasting may enhance anything, but is it something that's advantageous, or is it
It's
plant?
advantageous, yeah, it is definitely, like if I do an ayahuasca like dieta or for San Pedro, I get more nuances, more emotion, I can hear more voices that greet me, so it's more fulfilling experience, depth experience.
So the instructions for raising seedlings, and I've raised some San Pedro and some Peruvians from seed, and they go through a juvenile stage. It looks really different than the adult. Do people eat the juvenile stage, or do you have to wait until it's mature? But San Pedro can mature for 10 years.
I bet you have to wait to grow it. Yeah, I haven't found anything about that in my research. That's a good question.
How would you contrast, and without getting into specifics and particulars, the difference with your experience in the NAC versus the South America? Because where I come from, spirit is a matter of place and context, etc., and culture. So when you take that out of there, so I wonder if you could compare and contrast the NAC with this.
With this, gosh, I mean, the NAC is a community.
Right, I know the NAC part. I'm just wondering with your experience, because I don't have any knowledge to compare the two and your two.
So you mean like solo journeys?
No, I guess cultural differences. How the medicine person, which I shall come, is how they guide you. Because, Duran always said, a medicine person leads you up to the cliff and then jumps over.
Yeah.
So, can you compare the two? Is it?
The other shaman I've worked with is through ayahuasca. Where the San Pedro walks to. Definitely more connected, a lot more sound healing happening there. Comes around once in a while, Portland. But my connection, I've sat with the peyote, the native medicine woman also. But in comparison to the Peruvian aspect in that culture, introduced it, was definitely really strong, really powerful medicine. More so.
Hey, how old are those plants up there?
So the one's cuttings, he's got to be 6 years old. I took cuttings, I ordered some, and then I cut them in half and grew them. So they're already cut in half. So they've grown, each grown about a foot in 5 years. That's slow.
With peyote and Wachuma being cousins and peyote being endangered, Wachuma has been pointed to as a potential substitute should peyote no longer be available. What's your take on their similarities and differences and suitability of Wachuma for that?
Yeah, I mean, it is said that we need to wait a generation and not take up too many peyote, and we should move and work with San Pedro. Peyote, I find there's more astral traveling in peyote. There's more crossing across the sky. There's more of a grounded feeling with San Pedro. There are more approaches from shadow cacti spirits that guide you with courage. How to take little baby steps that you didn't think, how to take risks that you never thought you could take before. It created a sense of peace, more of a sense of peace that you can move around in the world without any limitations, less fear. But peyote, there was definitely more astral traveling. The spirit realm were definitely more like eagle-related. Flying through canyons is one thing I always get. And it's also very audio-receptive cactus too. What's interesting is how far I go with San Pedro, I get more visuals versus peyote. But I haven't done peyote very often. The only thing I can remember is just like, oh yeah, now I understand how Native Americans did this medicine and communicated across the stars.
You said you get more visuals with San Pedro.
I did, yeah.
What do you say?
But there was more once you start traveling in the skies, and there are more, the visions are more from afar. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
When you cut them, do you have to do something to the top so it doesn't catch diseases or something, or does it just scab over? And
It just scabs over.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps just growing.
Just keeps growing. Mm-hmm. And don't overwater them. That's the key. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you had any source material or anything on the web available that was a little bit confusing about dosage and where you start.
Oh, yeah.
If it's dry, if it's wet, if it's how big it is.
I know. No, I don't have anything available right now. But I can give you my card and I can email you that information. I was thinking about uploading it to maps. I know they're taking in a lot of information about microdosing, and not many people have used San Pedro, so I thought I should upload that to them and explain what I've gone through so others can learn from that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.